We are back to talk about My Adventures with Superman Season 3, Episode 8. Oh my goodness, 2 episodes away before this season finishes. And then we're gonna, not too soon from now, we're gonna have a Green Lantern series. Insane. But, what'd you think about this episode? Oh, I forgot to mention, my goodness, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm here with the one and only.
Cameron Thomas fan clips.
I apologize. I didn't forget. It's just I got off my flow a little bit. But what did you think about this new episode? It was huge. I was really excited.
Yeah, I literally thought it couldn't get more hype than what episode 5 was, where we had the whole big fight with Cyborg Superman and everything. This was just as hype, if not a little bit more hype. And I love everything that happens with this, where this whole episode kind of is based off consequences, is what it really feels like. Because we have the consequences of what John Kent did to the future, where he completely changed his entire life. And then we also have the consequences of what happens to Superman with his powers and him leaving at the end of this episode, and the consequences of what happened when Laura went in Let's Corp and caused that project to go crazy. Anyway, I actually thought that was a pretty good theme to go with this episode because we haven't really seen the impact with the future of what can happen in Dragon Ball is really what it is. That's one thing that really hasn't happened in like the future Trunks arcs. And I really do like how they changed that up where we do see the kind of re- the consequences of what happens when you do mess with the past. It can change your future entirely. And I do really like that in a way where we see that John is no longer that happy go lucky, energetic kid that most likely had ADHD or was ADHD coded. And I really felt like this was a pretty cool way of giving us two different John hints where we have one that acts like Lois but also has the energy of Superman. But we also have another one where he is nothing like his parents. And I do really like that, where he literally is that angsty teen that doesn't want anything to do with his parents. And not only that, it kind of makes me wonder why Superman would Clark Kent would actually want to uh, abandon his family like that. It honestly made me really interested of what how much changed in that future, or if this is like another timeline and we just don't know it. And that's really the big mystery of this episode, which I think is really big. And I do like how when Laura was talking about the person that sent them on the mission, I thought for sure when she said General Wayne, I was like, oh, General Wayne, it Bruce Wayne, and I was like, uh, I thought for sure it was Bruce Wayne. I was like, we getting Bruce Wayne type stuff in this now, and then I forgot that Wayne was Lois's dad, and I was like, oh, I forgot that that's his name. And then it showed that it was actually Lois that was the general, which I thought was a big impactful scene. And it also makes me wonder if that alternate universe is like somehow connected to what this universe is now that we met in the last episode. That I feel like that would kind of help last episode for those people that were saying it was filler to make people stop saying it is filler. It could really help that. But honestly, I don't think it could happen. It could happen definitely because they said that there wasn't a Superman. But even then, Superboy calls himself Superman. He is the Superman of that universe. So I highly doubt it, but it would be pretty cool to be honest with you. But I do really like how um, this Jonathan and Laura, they both have it's like a very deep cut reference of what their suits look like, where they have the symbol of the first Superman comic, where he had the black background, black triangle, and yellow S, and that was the original Superman suit. And I think that was a pretty nice deep cut reference in there for those Superman fans, although kind of spoils it because we get the DC Studios logo at the beginning of every episode now, and that shows the first Superman ever. So kind of doesn't really make it it's an obvious reference. So, but I did really like how he really didn't like Clark Kent at all. He did not want to be around him. He thought he was just like his original dad, which who knows, maybe this Superman could be like a version of like an evil Superman like Zod or Bizarro, but who knows? But I actually think this Superman stuff is getting really interesting. And I do like how they both have problems where it seemed like last time John Kent was like so close to Superman, and it was pretty much known that he was definitely a family child. He was a child that really loved being around his family. And now he is someone that is distant from his family, which kind of breaks my heart for Clark and Lois because they feel like they are the worst parents ever, even though that is their alternate universe versions. They still think, which could be true, that these both futures and present is connected, which, it could be part of the multiverse theory where we could get a multiverse where this is an alternate universe, just like in the last episode. But I do really like how this really does try to show you how much Clark and Lois have stress, even though they try to be parents and try to parent these kids, even though they're not properly their kids yet. But I do like how they really try to give these kids some hope and freedom to kind of understand that, here we're not those people. We'll fix whatever needs to be fixed. And all Laura cares about is what uh Lois what Wayne was back in the day, where all he cared about was getting the job done, never giving up, which we saw in season 2. And I kind of like how that was. And then we have Jonathan, who is someone who always tries to protect, but he has very, he can tell, you can tell that he is not all that smart when it comes to combat and everything because he wasn't fully trained. He had to learn his powers on his own. And when we got to the Lex Luthor stuff, oh boy, I got so happy. I knew that we were going to get him bald in this season because, well, it was pretty much told at Comic Con last year. But I really do think it's very interesting that I was thinking, oh, maybe they'll do it at the beginning of the season or maybe they'll do it at the middle because I was like, maybe they'll do it in the middle and it will just be a temporary thing. And I was like, maybe it'll be set for last season. But it really didn't seem like they were kind of hinting at that this is going to be the Lex for now on. And I will say that I really do think he kind of looks better with hair. I'm not going to lie. I actually do think he looks way better with hair. It will probably grow on me after a while. Change is hard, but I do think he should have kept the hair. I can kind of understand why they waited this long not to get to make a ball because he just didn't look right. But I actually do like how um he the way they did it was so different that I think it works because we usually see that he there's so many different ways that he loses hair, like gamma rays from Superman's laser. He loses his hair that way. He loses his hair because he shaves it, because he thinks that hair made him look like a loser because he lost to Superman when they first met. It's all different ways that they do it, and I liked how he didn't want to do it, but he had to in order to put part of his brain into this machine that so he could control this other Superman that is part of Superman's tissue to be a part to control mentally. And I thought that was very genius. But I do like how Amanda Waller is back and literally taking full control of Lex again, which I am wondering how this works out because uh, Amanda Waller, she seemed to not really like Lex anymore because his machines were defective. And it's almost like she realized that she made a big mistake while firing him because that just meant that he gets full control now and gets to make all the machines he wants. And I do really like how she pulls in, she's taken over Let's Corp, whatever it will be called. I don't know. Maybe it will be another damage control building, but I do think that's a pretty cool aspect of it that they were able to put Amanda Waller back in season 3 because she was honestly a really fun character in the second season because of how she gave right reasons for the wrong things, and she gave a good reason of why Superman shouldn't be treated like a human. Why do we trust him? He could be evil. He's an alien and all this. And I do like how they write Amanda Waller in the show than what they did with the DCEU, where she just only worked with the Suicide Squad and that was it. When really she works on so much more. And I do really like how her and Let's work out, and then you also have Slade in there, pretty much upset at what Lex is doing because he is doing the same thing he did to Hank, which you would think if he did that to Hank, he would think twice, but nope, this is Lex we're talking about. And with him literally saying, "Oh, you should have showed her your secret project, your your number one project." And then he's like, "Oh, but it's not finished or anything." And she's like, "I insist." And I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be bad." And the moment when it showed it, I was like, "Okay, did they based off the design of Spear from Primal? Because that's what it really looks like. It looks like Spear from Primal if he was Superman. Is what it really looks like." And I even saw the Toonami pages even make fun of that, of how the similarities are there. But I did like how Laura was the one that made the mistake, and it showed that she's very inexperienced, and it kind of made it pretty cool to see how these young supers need their parents to help them become more experienced as supers. And it really just showed that this dynamic is very messy right now, but it can be so much better the more it develops. And I do really like how they all work together to try to stop this being. And I will say Kara was literally the best character of this episode. I saw so many people blazing about Kara in this. So many people, since Supergirl's now on digital, have seen it now, and they were like, show this episode to the director of Supergirl to show her how to write Supergirl. And I was like, it's a different take, y'all. They're two different types of Supergirls that they're really different in a way. But I really do think she was a pretty good. She was really much holding the team up and carrying the whole thing, and she's pretty much carried the whole season if you thoroughly think about it. And I really do think her fighting styles in this episode, man, it was animated so beautifully. I thought the way they did the camera shots, the way they made the animation move, it was like top tier stuff than what they did with episode 5, which I'm guessing these animators are just getting 10 times better the more they work on the show. And I guess, and as this episode kept going on and Kara kept fighting this being, I thought it was so cool of how she knew that she was the hope for Jonathan originally. So she was like, if anyone's going to break him, I can break him into the to show him that there is hope in this world. And where she literally calls him her family, and you also have another moment where she literally calls him her future, her real future. I thought all that just worked so well. And and I'm just gonna say she is so awesome when she fights in the show and in this season. Cause I will say I got so hyped when she started fighting. And then after that, uh when that evil Superman started shooting at um Jonathan, I was when she did the Piccolo sacrifice scene, I was like, man, they're doing the Piccolo thing from the Saiyan saga. I thought that was so cool and everything. First, she ended up being future Gohan, and now she's Piccolo. So I guess she is someone that just loves to sacrifice herself in any shape or form. It's just very interesting. But I did really like how they kind of recreated the scene in Dragon Ball Z in the Boo saga and in the Saiyan saga as well, where she falls down and then she says her final words to Jonathan, and then she says, you are my real future." I thought that was just chef's kiss, perfect, 10 out of 10 stuff. And it really did let me almost cry. I didn't fully cry, but I almost cried. And I will say that seeing uh everyone hopelessly and making us in the episode where she is dead and we don't know if she's alive just hits so much harder. But they could have easily just let Jimmy or someone be like, oh, she's still breathing. But no, they say she is not breathing. So it makes me do wonder how they do end up getting her back to life at some point. It now, if it's me, I think Superman could probably use his super speed to go so fast he goes back in time, or maybe he gets Lex to make some kind of time machine to go back a few minutes later before Laura decided to go to Lex Corp to assassinate Lex. It could go either any way, shape, or form. And I think no matter what, it will be impactful no matter what, because this is a top tier character that is beloved by so many people online, all over my timeline on X and YouTube. I'm seeing so many people pretty much say that Kara is their favorite character, which rightfully so. And I do think that they knew that Kara was such a fan favorite in the second season, that they did it this way to make it much more impactful. And I can actually see that happening. Is also probably was supposed to be made for to make more hype for that Supergirl movie that ended up being a box office flop. But I really do like how this show really pays tribute to Kara, where we don't know if she'll come back or not. I'm pretty sure she'll come back, but as of now, we don't know if she will come back. And I think that is so big and suspenseful where it keeps you on your toes. It kind of reminds me of how, as we were getting to the last few episodes of season two, it was just big moment after big moment after big moment. And this is like another one of those things where it's big moment after big moment after big moment. And I will say that it's very interesting how, but I noticed this when I first watched this. I was so confused. They don't give a good explanation of this, but Bizarro comes down as where everyone's uh, mourning over Kara's death. Bizarro just comes and everyone's like they've seen him before. It's almost like, was this a time skip or something? Like, I am so confused by that because I thought for sure once Superman saw Bizarro, he would be confused, wanting more answers and stuff, being confused, and then eventually be like, oh, you're the guy I saved from the lab. You actually survived. And then I really feel like it should have been that, but I'm guessing due to runtime reasons, they just couldn't. And I think that's a really letdown because that was one of those things that I was wondering. I want to see their big meetup and everything, how Superman or Jimmy or all the other characters take things, their reactions to it. And instead, when he comes down, they act like it's just normal for to see anyone that can fly and just look like Superman, which I think is so weird. But I do like how Bizarro was the one to help Superman get back to the the Fortress of Solitude. And I did like how it's pretty much shown that that's where he gets his powers back. And I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. That was a no brainer because it's in Superman lore that his powers are somewhat connected to the Fortress of Solitude. Everything that Superman needs is connected to that Fortress of Solitude and his memories, everything. And I totally forgot that it existed in this season because it didn't exist in the last two seasons. So it's kind of interesting how they decided to do that. And it's probably the reason why the first thing that we see in the season is the Fortress of Solitude. But I will say it's really not set up there. And but another question is, how did Clark see the Fortress of Solitude from that far away, or was that some kind of vision? It's almost like he had his supervision almost where he could see far away, and I felt like that was a weird plot hole that happened in it. But I'll just say it's some kind of he in his mind he was thinking about it. But when we see Bizarro go there with Superman, and Superman is like fully beat up, he can't stand the cold and everything. I thought that was very interesting because we actually see that his skin is no longer made of steel. So he is full on a human at this point. So like he is not Kryptonian at all. So like the steel in his DNA is like gone. And I think that is pretty interesting too. And as we see him go to the Fortress of Solitude, we see that Brainiac has full control of the Fortress of Solitude, which cartoon animation fan literally pointed that out in our first review of, oh, well, in his first review. I wasn't in the first episode, but he literally pointed that out where he was like, I think that, oh, Brainiac's going to return in some way, shape, or form. And I was like, I think they're going to save him for season 4. No, my dumb head was so stupid. It didn't realize that what a genius cartoon animation fan was, obviously. But, but, actually thought it was very cool how we, got that foreshadowing of what was going to happen. Although him taking full control of Bizarro was interesting compared to what he's doing, what kind of like what he did with Superman, probably because he saw, uh, in some way, shape, or form, he can see if someone has superpowers or not, which I think is awesome. And from the promo, it looks like from the Toonami uh, preview, it's looking like Superman has to prove himself that he is uh, worthy of his powers. He is worthy. But everyone is, the robots are obviously saying that, oh, we took away your powers because you were not being a conqueror. You were being someone that was nice. And he's like, saying, well, that's what a person should do. And I don't know the exact words. I haven't seen the promo in a while, but I actually do think that is a very interesting way of to doing an episode. And I fully believe that the A plot, if not the whole episode, will be mostly Superman base, and will show him trying to go through all these trials to get his powers back, which I can see that happening. I think it could be pretty cool if the whole time it was Brainiac that was controlling these robots to make them say that and change their programming and everything to make him waste his time because he stole his powers and put it into the database. I think that could be pretty cool, to be honest with you. But it, like I said, it could go either way. We're at the point where anything can happen, and I think that's just the greatest part about the show is that it keeps you guessing, and every time you guess, you either be right or you be wrong. But anyway, I actually thought this episode was peak, absolute peak. It was perfect, and it was just it left a fantastic taste in my mouth after the disappointment messiness that we had of last episode.
I can agree. Now, one of my biggest disappointments is they took their own son and they split him off with this personality that wasn't as fun. I want a fun Superboy.
Hmm.
But I think partially some of his personality got split off into Laura, which I'm like, I'm not really into this. I rather that we had the Jimmy and Kara daughter instead. It would have been cool. It would have been something new. Instead, we're kind of trying to alternate something whenever Superman and Lewis is supposed to have two sons, which is not. It's not too strange, It's nothing big, but I would love for both to get attention more, Supergirl and Superman. But yeah, that was like one of my big letdowns. Whenever it comes to the big villain, what was his name again? Annihilator. I forgot.
Natalie, or yeah,
Or something
yeah.
like that. It was something like that. Devastator. I wanted to call him the Devastator because that sounds so cool. But as we were watching this fight go down, you could really see him evolve. He had like 4 arms at one point. He grows the long hair, which is pretty funny and really odd. But what happened is whenever we see Bizarro, I'm like, wait, is that the same hair that Bizarro has? That's kind of funny a little bit. And it was like, wait, well, it's kind of like crazy. But yeah, you could really see him evolve. He finally starts speaking, and he ends up time traveling, which comes into a big problem. Now, I was looking to see what this character looked like in the comic books. He's also going to have a Superman costume, by the way. So he's going to be running around with the big S on his chest, just like many of these other characters we've seen so far this season. So it is the season of Superman's appearing, whether they're good or bad. And I'm jumping because I'm gonna jump to where Bizarro got mind controlled. Something tells me Brainiac really likes him because he's weak-minded, and he's had a trigger off and on if you remember what the sounds. And I believe Brainiac is gonna see through this and become pretty much like his new dad, or pretend to be his dad from before, mind control him, and then make his reasoning from good to bad, thinking bad is good, thus becoming Bizarro. And I feel like that's going to be a big thing that is going to either happen at the end of this season or like this next episode. Because I feel like Brainiac is tricking Superman into doing whatever he says to what he thinks is getting his powers, in theory. And on top of Supergirl being injured right now, I do think that the sun probably has something to do with it. Maybe something similar for Clark, but there's a lot of ways they can go about getting his powers, absolutely. He could even have to go back to do the puzzles to get that done, but I think he's gonna have to be on his own. Like, I think that's gonna be heavily something they're gonna do is make it all about him. But they are eventually gonna have to talk to Lex Luthor to get those time things to go to the future, or at least take their son and daughter into the future. That way they can get out. Which it's going to be a bit confusing, but we're going to see as it goes to make it less unconfusing. I think is the word. I'm all over the place. You mentioned it pretty good. It's an episode that is much better than the last one. But to me, the big flaw was that now they've changed their own future itself, and they created two kids that I'm not exactly a huge fan of just yet. We'll have to see them outside of the danger and the bad stuff. Too serious for my liking. I really like the Superboy, and if they're gonna have Laura, I would like her to be kind of like Lewis, kind of like her exactly. I feel like they kind of identify with each of their own counterpart or parents, and I think that's something that they're gonna try and do. So that way we have a super version of each one, even though Superman already has powers. It's whatever. They just adapt to personality traits and kind of enhance it a little bit. It's whatever. I'm just all over the place. What would you rate this episode?
I definitely give it a 10 out of 10. I will say this was a fantastic episode.
I agree with that. I feel like this is a really great episode. Um, my rating of this episode, I was thinking a little bit last night. I'm like, I think it's a pretty good episode. I'll give it a 9.2. I feel like that's fair. We gotta see how this all goes. I felt like
Yeah,
whenever, like you said about Bizarro just coming out of nowhere and then being like, "Hey, what's up,
yeah.
bro?" But Superman trusts Bizarro enough to take him to the Fortress of Solitude, which I thought was weird in the first place. It's not that, I don't think that Superman wanted to do that, but he doesn't even really talk to him. He's just like, just there. He's just like, just the usual. And I don't think he's actually ever seen him in costume.
He only said like one line in this to him, and that was, I was not, I didn't make it in time. That's all he said. That's all he says to him. And he's like, oh, you must be a good guy.
They could surprise us and they could show us what kind of happens, but I heavily doubt it. There's a lot of things that they just can't do with the limited time of this series, especially with the 10 episode count. So stuff will go missing like this, and it's really not the first time this has happened in the season. So there is some flaws in the season itself. It's not really going to be the end all because I don't think they want to end this series. They obviously want to go another season at least, and maybe even go further. I could see 6 seasons, in my honest opinion.
Yeah,
But
6 or 7.
yeah, yeah. You got anything else to add?
I will say, I did find out what if Laura Kent was a character that was actually another was in the comments, and I was like, okay, so is she actually so? And believe it or not, I found in like this deep rabbit hole that I had no idea that happened in DC ever. But apparently, she is a character, but she is not that used that much in DC media. In some comic runs, she is Clark and Lois's daughter, and then in other comic runs, she is Superman's and Wonder Woman's daughter, which I thought was pretty weird, to be honest with you. I was like, when does Superman ever fall in love with Wonder Woman? Like I felt like that was the weirdest thing that I saw, but I thought, oh, but it's DC. It does whatever it wants. But another thing I noticed this episode, I forgot to say this, but um, when Lex was talking about the device that the evil Superman uses to teleport to the past, well, to the future, he pretty much said something that I think is very important. It sounded like he pretty much confirmed that the Lantern Corp is around and everything because he says I've been to the future and I've seen what is out there. There are aliens that are way bigger than Superman. There's a whole civilization of aliens. And I was like, are they trying to set up the Lancer Corp so quickly to where it fits in with the universe? I was like, all right, I guess. But I was like, since when? Why did Let's go to the future? Like, what did he see in the future? I was like, did, I was so confused by that because I was like, did he do that during the time of like the ceremony and them doing that whole tournament and everything? It's so weird that it feels like we are missing a part of the story there. But
Yeah.
maybe it'll get revealed at some point of what he does see because Amanda Waller cuts him off when he's about to reveal what he saw. So it's got to be revealed at some point. If not, I'm saying it's the Leonard Corp. They were trying to do it, but due to time limit reasons, just had to cut him off.
Yeah, and the thing about Amanda Waller, I know you were talking about her. She's like the police of the universe. She'll pop up every
Yeah.
now and then. She's just really a hindrance. If anything, she's not like Lex Luthor directly always trying to combat it, but she's usually heavily against the heroes for the most part. But she does side with good versus evil whenever good is done. So she's at least
Hmm.
understanding. And also,
Yeah.
in Lex Luthor, it is pretty weird how all at once, like he was evil, but he goes like super villain out of nowhere, like shaving his hair, trying to take part of
Yes.
his mind to make this robotic person. Well, it's mutated, really, if you think about it. But yeah, it doesn't really make sense too much. They're probably going to end up doing a comic book adaptation of something to eventually explain some
Oh
things,
yeah, yeah. I
which,
would love to see a comic book of just Letz's side story of how he got his aura in this episode. That would just be so cool.
yeah, I mean, it's very possible, and it makes you wonder though. Now that Lex has been kicked out, what's gonna happen with Slade? Is he gonna go Deathstroke and go solo mode? Because he's like one of the smartest assassins. He's high class. He's actually the goat. He's a fun character that I think it's possible. Like he could get his own series, but I don't think it's my Adventures territory. Like he is that great of a character, quite literally. If you,
Yeah.
yeah, you need to check out
Plus,
Lex.
I feel like he's too dark to get his own series because
Mhm.
this series is just so very light-hearted and everything. And Slade is one of those characters that is just so dark if you do him right.
Yeah, but it's like, why would you include him unless you wanted to, maybe later on bring in the Teen Titans? You never know. I think they really want it. It would make sense, and I feel like the writer on deck would be really into that one because it's just it's GOAT status. Bring back the OG Teen Titans.
Yeah.
But
Although they did have a bunch of random Batman villains for Amanda Waller's team, so against Brainiac. So there's another thing about that.
you can't do Batman because of Caped Crusader. That's just poor planning, I guess. Money talks, that's really what that all comes down to. And I'll leave it to that. That's all I really got. Anything else?
All I got too.
Okay. Well, we want to know what your guys' thoughts are on My Adventures with Superman Season 3, Episode 8. Hope you guys stay safe. Until next time, peace out, guys.
Peace out, guys.